Push up all over that countdown. When you're sitting here behind the screen waiting for that countdown to go down, you're like, I'm going to get started soon. Anyway, welcome everyone and all to the first inaugural show of the MonoGame University. This is probably something we as the foundation should have been doing a long time ago. We're busy building the actual foundation, we're building the project, we're getting code, we're getting tutorials. So many things going on behind the scenes, but we have to make our time for you, our community, and to help you get there faster, quicker, and in as little time as possible to get started. Because everyone wants to get making games. They don't want to be reading docs or looking through this and that. They want something cool, like a snake running around their screen. So that's the purpose of this. We're going to go hand in hand. You can ask questions as we're going through. Over the coming weeks or months, we're going to be slowly building out what is the 2D getting started tutorial, getting through every single step, going through every slot. If you have questions, you can ask them while we're actually building the project and get things done. We've got a handed set of community members also on the stream as well. We're firing up questions and answers, including the original 2D tutorial. The 2D tutorial author. Interesting tongue twister. Anyway, so as we kick off, this is what we're going to be about. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to week by week, every Thursday, 4 o'clock UK. Well, it's going to turn to 3 o'clock in UK in a few weeks. And we're going to go through every single chapter of the 2D tutorial, building everything out, adding things in, discussing options, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. And ultimately then, if you've got questions where you're following along with the tutorial, you can ask them. Or if there's something in your game, on your project that is hot at the moment, that's related to the content, ask the question there and then. If not, what it has to do is to take it offline as the actual community chat for the stream, which you can find over here on Discord. I'll show you later. But anyway, so first and foremost, we're going to go through the tutorial. Starting week 1, we're going to just get a little bit light, a little bit of setup. We're also going to go through some of the different kind of code and questions we're going to do. And primarily today as well, the showcasing where the tutorial is, what's going to get done. We're also going to look at what else is out there. So yes, MonoGame's trying to promote and do the best of the brightest there. But again, MonoGame comes from a long history and a long line of tutorials and content out there. Even content that's been originally written for XNA4 is still valid today with MonoGame. There's a few little tweaks and turns and things on the road because obviously XNA didn't support Android, it didn't support iOS, it did support the 360 and eventually the Xbox One. But really, it was his wheelhouse in Microsoft. But MonoGame sort of tore that apart, and we're sort of stretching that even further now as we're starting to add more platforms and things that were coming along. But obviously, our fantasy community out there's a lot of people who are experienced developers are also writing their own content. So we will also use the show to actually showcase what some of the other people are doing and highlight new things. And if I find something cool in the week or someone ping me something cool in the week, it will feature on the show. So we're all about tutorials, we're all about content, and we're all about building the best games you can. As we get to the end of the 2D show, we'll work on some of the newer content as it becomes more publicly released. So as those you might know, we have got a 2D shaders tutorial. Some people have seen a sneak peek of it. We'll do more detail and things like that later and come on. That, for the first 3 months, will be released to sponsors or patrons or GitHub sponsors. We'll get early access to that on our new private doc site. You'll be able to ask early access questions before it eventually becomes more general release, and it will also hit the show. Similarly, we will also have a session on doing mobile deployment, specifically taking the 2D tutorial project, showing what is needed to make it more mobile friendly, and then actually shipping it, building it, deploying it on the different various mobile platforms. And I would love to do one on consoles, but unfortunately, there are lots of things that get in the way of that. But hopefully, when I talk to our Microsoft partners, we might be able to get early access to the Microsoft Creators platform or the Developer Access platform, whatever the name of this week. I will get shouted at by Clint for butchering that. But we hope to also bring that out there. So we're going to keep going, going to keep fast. this is currently one show. It may spin off into several, depending on the demands. We're constantly in communication with people to try and see what else we can get there and getting out. So let's quickly see if there's any questions as we get down there. Yeah, to the question, can I see Twitch chat? Yes, I can see Twitch chat. Let's do it. Let's do that one. There we go. Thank you, Mutsi, for enrolling in the university. It's a hard place course. We'll be here, and like any university course, I shall disappear for a few weeks, and you can just turn up to the recording. I won't. These will all be live because ultimately I want to be there for your questions. You've got things going to get done. Questions you have while actually doing these projects, or that you've discovered as you're going through the tutorials yourselves, and things you thought, well, it didn't answer this question, or but what if I want to do this? And yes, thanks Aristotle, who's the original creator of this. He's actually online early in the day in the US at the moment, but he's on. But anyway, moving on. So as we announced in the open hours, we're trying to ramp up our streaming schedules now. So obviously we have the open hours, which every third Wednesday of the month, where we show you the latest and greatest of what's happened in MonoGame in the last month, and showcase and show some things out there. Tom, or one of the team, is now scheduling regularly on a Friday. As you've probably also seen, we're doing lots of little impromptu feeds. So we did a session on the 3.4.1 hotfix, which will address all the Google policy and some iOS fixes. We also had a stream going through the upgrading guides and things like that. So we're trying to do as much more content out there for you that you find valuable. If there's something you find that is missing, that you'd like to see more on, for instance, one of the shows that's been sort of tabled, as it were, is like taking the MonoGame showcase that is on the Discord, that's on the site, and bring it in front of a stream. Play these games, talk to the devs, showcase what's going on as an independent channel. And that's one of many things. Someone else has asked about doing libraries and stuff. We shall see. If you have an idea of what to do, throw it in the suggestions, or throw it into the actual stream announcement. Well, not stream announcements, because you can't put that into one of these channels there. I should have put a streaming suggestions channel there. So as much as I hate creating channels in Discord, I will do that one. But anyway, moving on, sip of tea Earl Grey hot. So, as I said, the two main streams now, the one you're watching now, hey, it was originally Creators University. We had a bit of a design review choice, and now it's just the MonoGame University to keep things simple. And Code Time, let's say, it's every Friday, but we may also have impromptu streams jumping up in the week when there's something critical. One of the ones I will likely be doing, but I don't have a date for yet, is the MonoGame Content Builder, so the replacement for the MonoGame Content Editor. The Hensfile beast that keeps keeping me awake at night and causing no end of stress trying to test it. Anyway, one thing we want to showcase as well is that there was a book released recently by Anne Langville, who's a university professor, and from what I can see and going through this book, this goes through everything for a beginner, getting all the steps in there, going through everything you need to know, all in a nice print form you can go and buy and use. Shout out to Aaron if he's online, or if you find him on the street, give him a good clap on the back for putting his time and effort into building something for MonoGame. We're hoping that we can actually get Aaron onto a future open hours, maybe to talk about the book and what was involved with it, and what was involved in creating it. As a published author myself, you have to really respect how much time and effort goes into creating a book. 12 months of my life for my first title is done, including a 2-week panic session where I lost a chapter. If you find me in a bar one day, buy me a beer and I shall tell you that story. It still haunts me to this day. But anyway, let's move on. So here we are. We're going to get started. As I said, first and foremost, we're just talking about what the course is going to take, what's going to involve, and what we're doing. So, obviously, as we're here, we're talking about MonoGame. Latest, greatest, what's going on. Everything you need to know about getting started is all on our homepage. We've got obviously a nice big getting started button, which just takes you to all the different avenues are for learning, whether it's tutorials, whether it's samples. There is a fantastic section of how-to guides, which are small snippets of this is what all the different components are. If you ever want to know where a graphic device is, or how the sprite batch works, or how to go and actually have device screen independent resolution handling, this is all in the how-to and what is guides. What is something, how it is. Then a lot of this came from the original XNA tutorial section and the education section. The original XNA section. I need another drink. And in here, there are also things like, there's all like, what is the content pipeline? What is the game loop? A very, very, very small primer on what is game math. As you can see, there's lots of sections down here. And the how-to section is pretty much the same. In the case of the things like how to load audio, how to load it from file, how to handle input. Lots of little different snippet things of, I need to do X. Short, simple, to the point. Beyond that, then, we've also got the full documentation hub, which has all the managed documentation for MonoGame. This includes all the API documentation, a lot of information around how to get started, and also where we'll be starting here with the old getting started guide, but more on that later. So there is also sections on samples and demos, and there's also a big tutorial section, which is all the tutorial got, including what we're doing today. The upcoming tutorials that are there, the upcoming 3D tutorial, which is getting there. There's lots of issues with that one, but we are edging closer, as it were. And there is also a lot of other things in there. So there's a lot of community contributions and things like that. But for that, really, we need to go and visit Discord. Now, quick step aside. So if you want to talk offline around this channel and what we're going to be covering, there's a dedicated thread for talks about each show. So each show will have its own different independent threads. So you want to ask questions about a specific subject. As you can see here, we're doing about the launch. And if you need quicker and easier access to that, can I find it? There we go. Where is it? There it is. There's the actual QR code for actually joining the chat, which will let you get in and get involved with what's in there. In fact, let's make the screen bigger. What can we do? Nope. There. Let's change the layout there. Apologize for that. I'm messing up my screens now. So, in here, this is the chat. There we go. Thank you, Chris. He's going to jump in and do a nice. Is someone going to do a first? Right, there we go. That's usually the thing. I set on each channel, someone has to go in through first in it. Oh, he's backed out. But anyway, what I want to highlight on Discord itself is up here in the sort of showcase section. There is also a tutorial section. Now, in here, there are many tutorials, lots of distinct things which the community have written for what things you need to know how to get working. So whether it's 2D depth in water, Arcturus did a fantastic rendering section about how to do different kind of rendering modes. Thank you, Chris. There we go. Some of the bounty holders also put the previews of things there. Now, granted, these are not optimized. These are not been reviewed. They're just the raw content if you really want to get early access to it. The MonoGame Extended team did a fantastic course about using spreadsheets. And you can look through the rest of these. There's lots of things going on here. As the weeks go on, we'll probably try and focus on some specific content or different things. And one thing I would actually highlight as well, just to really whet your appetite when you're looking at what people are doing and how they're working, is also, there we are, let's clear the screen up a bit. Let's take that off again. So, is the 2D and 3D showcase. Now, this is where game developers, and I highly encourage everyone to do this. It doesn't matter how finished your game is, how incomplete it is, or if it's just doing a feature. Show people. The community is very friendly, very happy to get in there. There's both a 2D and a 3D showcase, showcasing what things are done. There we go. Let's see what someone has put up here. I did watch it. This was fantastic. Let's see now. Can we get this a bit bigger? Ooh, that's a bit small on the screen. But this was a 3D character creator, the one developer showcasing about how they're doing things. And the good thing about this showcase as well is most developers are happy to talk about their creations. So they're all different threads, how these are set up, and you can go through and look and see what they're doing. Mutsi was playing around with some grass. There we go. We want to see some grass. We can ask Mutsi how the grass is made. I mean, this is just fantastic. It's all MonoGame. I love it. For those who should go and look at Arcturus, the game is really showing up. It's honestly made. They touch grass emoji. Oh, I love it. But anyway, all that aside, we're here to talk about the actual content that we have today. So before we get started, to see if there's any more questions. Yes, multi-crash mention. Yep. Be special. No, yeah, we are using we're paying for now a streaming service. Is also why we want to up our game on doing more streaming. There's lots of things this software does. So things like, there we go. I can put up people's questions. Thank you, Square. Love to see you on every stream. Okay, so let's get started. If we head over now to our, see if I go to the actual MonoGame site, we've got this whole either got getting started, or you can go through the Learn tab itself. There is also the Create section, which is also where all the start kits are, the information about the templates, different kind of projects you can build. It also showcases some of the demos and all the resources we have. But that's not why we're here today. We're here to learn. And boy, you will learn. Or girl, or other, or... Yes. We'll stop that there. But in our tutorial section, we have the awesome 2D Getting Started project. Now, this covers everything, and you can see this. This is what we're going to be covering over the next many weeks. Let's see, 26 times some weeks. We might combine, some we might not. But we're going to try and do each chapter of this once a week. That way it gives us enough time for questions, go through debate, and also everything we need to go through what we need to learn from this. So in here, in case of a nice showcase, tells you what the project's about. Very simple. Not that really any game is truly simple unless you count the auto Pong sample, which is just one line of code, about 50 lines of code in one project and showing Pong playing against itself. But this is a fully fledged game. And we demanded this of Chris, and Chris knows all too well I can be very demanding when it comes to extracting the infinite amount of detail we need out of these tutorials, which made sure that the community gets what they deserve. So this covers everything from fancy running title screens to full menu systems, scene transitions, actual gameplay, following logic, and also making sure the fact that the logic makes sense as part of the game. Chris also went quite a bit further in making sure the fact that it made the gameplay challenging and showed different ways you can actually alter the game to improve it. And yes, I am. But anyway, through here, it's a case of I can see we're going to go through whole ant sprite animation using sprite sheets. And all of this is content built within just MonoGame itself with a few extra things. If you really want to go further, you need to look at other libraries like NES or GUM, or, well, we do a bit of GUM in here, MonoGame Extended and Prime. And there's lots of other things out there that help you accelerate your project. But what we say is learn the basics first. Build up a project, go from the very scratch, and then get to the end and actually ship it. Whatever you create, you should always ship it, because you learn more in that last 10% for actually getting your game out than you do almost for the entire time you end up building it. They usually say it's like the 90-10 or 80-20 rule, where 80% of the effort is in the last 20% of the game. And that is no joke. Just be prepared when you build new things, you're trying things out. Give yourself the time and the effort. And above all, don't be afraid to make mistakes. We are game developers, and sometimes some of the more fun features in games come from making mistakes, as it were. So anyway, we're going to go through all the sprite animation system. We're going to go through different controls through keyboard and gamepads, how they interact with the screen, what you need to do to make sure you're managing input states. We're going to go through different ways of loading sound effects and background music, all using the content pipeline to actually then package all of this content out so that it's ready for different platforms. A lot of people say, I don't need the content pipeline. I can just load things myself. And yes, the MonoGame API does give you capabilities to just load assets and content yourself. However, you're also then going to have to handle the different kind of ways you need to compress and package those for different platforms. If you're just working on one on desktop, it's not an issue. The moment you need to go to console or you need to go to a mobile device, you then find the ways that the content pipeline really helps you, because you only actually have to manage your content once. And the content pipeline will package it up, serialize it, compress it, and make it available on platforms, and also make it more accessible how it works. And also, because it's multi-platform, you've got one way of accessing content, not having to worry about different file streams and things like that. Anyway, I digress. We're also going to go through UI now. Aristotle also involved the developers at GUM and actually used GUM for the actual UX and UI for this, which is interestingly a bit challenging as GUM, because GUM is at the point where it's really accelerating its development and adding more features, which is creating a right pain for us in the tutorial because we have to keep updating it. But luckily, Vic over at GUM is actually doing a lot of work and making sure that all these upgrade guides and things are up to date. And he's even worked with Chris to ensure that the tutorial is kept up to date. So rest assured, everything that's in here and anything you read will always be up to date with the latest state of development for what it is. And Chris has even gone so far, as this tutorial goes through, and I was quite, again, demanding, this isn't just a builder project that's pretty, you can copy and paste and put it in there. No, this goes so far as actually to publish the game, and actually the tutorial goes through actually publishing the game on itch, so they can actually then download it. If you wanted to then build it in something like KNI, you could even have the KNI engine, which Encast builds. You can actually go and publish it as a web build on here as well. But anyway, this also really highlight the case of this tutorial gives you everything from nothing to getting your game shipped onto a platform. And what you learn in doing that is essential as if you're going to progress in your game development career, whether it's an indie, part-time, however you want to do it, coming to university once a week and just sitting down at a desk and asking the professor questions. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, no one needs the pipeline until you realize you need the pipeline. However, we are doing some things within the framework to try to make that easier. So trying to move some of the content from stream, things like that, and actually hiding behind the actual content load function to try and simplify that bit, because we understand people have different ways they want to manage content, and others have ways that they want to do things. And we're trying to be as open for the role. So we are doing ways to try and even streamline or smooth out that process. So if you go down the route of actually want to load everything locally and then suddenly want to change, we're trying to minimize the impact of actually doing that change. But anyway, so the one prerequisite for this course, and while it's not essential, because a lot of the course will teach you what you need to know, a basic level of programming knowledge is needed. There is the Learn, let's see where we're going to go with this. There's the Learn C# course, which Chris links into there. This is the Microsoft Learn course. One of the resources I also like to promote is My caps lock is on. Why is my caps lock on? Oops. Is this. So this is from another, actually former university professor called Rob Miles, and he's got the little yellow C# programming book. This is generally what I give to people to say, read this, you'll learn enough about C# to get along with most things. It's very good, and this is also what Rob used for teaching C#, brought out into the wild. But anyway, so you will need to know some level of C#. If you have questions as we're going through the course about what different programming things we're going to put in there, ask. That is what this course is here for. So you can ask questions as we're doing things. Right, so as the course is broken up, we have a simple breakdown of what is MonoGame. We can cover it briefly. If you don't know what MonoGame is, but you've come to the MonoGame University, I applaud you, as this be your first stop shop to MonoGame. But anyway, we'll cover briefly what MonoGame is, and if there's time, we're going to start delving into the getting started, which is mainly about setting up your machine, installing templates, using your favorite code editor of choice, and getting a blank project started. One thing I will also do with Chris, we're also going to set up a Git project, because this course is going to go over several weeks. I want to ensure the code that I create is safe and actually up on the source control repository. And no matter what kind of project you're building, I highly recommend, even from day one, or even day zero, realistically, you start with a blank Git project. Git being a source control process that most people use, you can host on either GitHub, GitLab, or several things around there. You can even start your own local one without putting it on the cloud. And just what it ensures that as you progress, you're making saves of your code over time. But not just that, it's also saving the history. So if you change something you didn't mean to, you can look back in history and find out what it was before you changed it to then recover it. Or you can wind your code back and things like that. Or if you fall foul of the AI beast, and bear in mind, if you use something like Copilot Chat or Claude or anything else, if it makes change to your code, it doesn't necessarily remember what it changed. So unless you're using kind of source control, you'll not have the code that was there before, because undo almost invariably, frustratingly, never works if you're using AI tools. Not that we're going to be using on this. If anyone has any questions, I will answer them. I do use it in my work life, not in my MonoGame life, because we try to keep MonoGame as pure as possible to ensure that developers are best prepared so they know what they're doing. The trick with AI is that you need to be the master of the AI, not the other way around. If it's implementing something and you don't understand what it's implementing, that's a failure, because it's most likely going to be implementing the wrong thing, invariably. As those will know me, I once had a half-an-hour argument pointing out to AI that it was hallucinating because it was suggesting a method that did not exist in MonoGame. I showed it code. It said, no, you must be using the latest. Here's the latest code. Oh, you need to use the development branch. No, this is the development branch. Oh, well, it must be something. Are you suggesting some kind of library? It refused. It was a long, protracted argument. But anyway, so you can look through this at your own leisure. It's got all the different courses. There's lots of detail on what's going to be used in there. A lot of the documentation as well, and some people seem to skip this, is the conventions that are used in our tutorials on MonoGame. So we try to keep the same style, the same effects, so that no matter which document you open, you can always see the same thing. So things that are emphasis or technical terms are going to be in italics. We try to highlight any specific code element or something you need to refer to, whether it's a class name, whether it's a method or something else. We try to keep it. We have inline code blocks, which we try to minimize as much as possible, because what you should have is full-form, copyable code sections. And these ensure the case of they're going to copy and paste in straight in, unless the code actually tells you that it's going to break it on the way through and then it's going to fix it later. And also have lots of links in here. And I'd also appreciate, and Chris would probably appreciate, you go and read his author, because it's got a nice little biography of everything there is to do with Chris. There we go. We can name and shame Chris. He created this. We're there. But anyway, MonoGame itself. So MonoGame is not new. And one of the interesting challenges I've come across whenever describing MonoGame is that people simply ask, "Isn't it dead? Wasn't it XNA? Did Microsoft close that down?" No. As you can see, as we're here, MonoGame itself is very alive as it were. And it comes from the original incarnation back in 2005, 2006, which was a program Microsoft started called XNA. It doesn't stand for anything. It is literally just XNA. You can search what you want. It doesn't actually mean anything. There was a joke about it being the Xbox Next architecture, but it's not. Assuredly. And Microsoft came out with the vision of saying, stop all this C++ nonsense. People need to use a framework or a language that they're more familiar with. So they started to build a C# based friendly programming language with all the gubbins you need to be able to draw and render and do audio to the screen. And this went through several iterations. We had XNA 1, which is very, very basic back in the days. We went through from 2 up until the end. We had 4, and the 4 refreshed when the Windows Phone launched. And at that time, it meant you could, through your C# game, you could deploy it to both your Windows desktop, to the Xbox 360, eventually even the Xbox One, and also to Windows Phone, all using the same things. There was a brief, strange period where we could even do it in Silverlight. Well, even that's gone to the wind. But as it was nearing towards the end of its life, MonoGame started originally as XNA Touch and a few other things. There's a long history listed here, but ultimately, a case of what we did there is that we took the XNA APIs. It was in the XNA 4 refresh, which was quite well formed. It was okay for its time. It didn't push any boundaries. It wasn't trying to drive performance. It was there to ensure that your game worked. And the API itself, and the thing that people are most getting confused about, the API has not changed in over 10 years. In fact, almost I'd say 15 years now, because any game that was built with it now still works. And that's part of the actual power that is MonoGame, because while the overlying surface itself has not changed, under the surface, the water case of where we go, we can compare it to Android, iOS, all the different consoles, PlayStations, Switches, Switch 2s. All of that is under the hood, where at the top, you built your game. You suddenly want to take on another platform, apart from handling different resolutions and different input modalities, your game will still work. And all the shaders you built for it work, although actually we are actively trying to change that right now. We're trying to not break shaders, we're trying to evolve them. But in a sense, as rugged it is, nothing has changed from the outward. Which some people say, well, it's dead, but it's not, because everything that happens is under the hood. And through that, it means that any sample that was even built with XNA 4 and some of the earlier MonoGame tutorials, the majority of those just work. About the only thing that's really changed when it comes to a MonoGame project is the actual format of the actual project itself. And we can highlight this because it was actually a subject of a recent stream. So if you find an XNA sample or an XNA project, we have full guides here of how you can take an XNA project and convert it into MonoGame. Realistically, what you're talking about is MonoGame, create a new sample project, copy the code over, copy in your assets, and generally speaking, it will just run. That's the beauty of that. There's no other framework or engine that can really say that, especially so. But the only areas that you really hit friction, and we've got blog posts and things on this around, is that some of the original XNA samples used very old versions of model formats like FBX. It uses a very early version of FBX. It needs to be like 2003 and above to be compliant with MonoGame, just to be able to be compiled because of how Autodesk has changed the structure of those models. Also, Microsoft had a lot of models in the DirectX or X format. Most of those still work, some of them don't. Generally speaking, you need to take those and upgrade them or just replace them. It's a lot easier. Audio is fine. Some of the namespaces went away, so we removed the .NET because that was very much just an Xbox network style focus, although there have been calls to sort of bring that back. We did have a combined storage API, which has degraded over the years, but now that's also coming back. Dom Lewis is actually working on an upgrade of that, so we can have one storage solution for all platforms. That might sound easy, but it's not, because the way different platforms handle serialization or saving or accessing certain file systems or the permissions they require, it gets quite complex to have it. So to have a unified API to manage all that for you is fun. If you look at some of the other samples and things that MonoGame has published, so there's the Greedy Kids sample project, which one of our MonoGame Foundation members actually published and actually put out there for open source. There's also the Old School Adventure Game, and those are complete projects which show you different ways to handle saving on different platforms. It's lots of fun. Similarly, when we had the 3.7 and earlier realm, is that we were changing how the project's built. So if we look at some of the samples that have different references, they have different styles of how things work. And also the instructions go through about how we added and do things. Although it'd be very rare you'd actually find an old project like this. What you're more likely to find is you go from XNA, you're going to go to the modern framework from 3.8 in the 3.8 branch. And even then, things have changed, not necessarily because of MonoGame, but because of the .NET framework and how it's evolved. We've gone through different styles, actual project definitions and how they work, even up to the latest 3.8 or forward or one release. We've done some minor changes to make your lives easier by removing some things that are no longer needed to be managed because it creates problems, and also changing how some mobile platforms need to work. But that's what these guides are there for. They walk you through step by step. No matter where your project's coming from, there's a guide here. If there's not, let us know, and we will sort it out. But anyway, back onto the show. So we're doing what is MonoGame. So at its highlight, that's what MonoGame is about. There are many projects out there written in MonoGame. Granted, yes, a lot of 2D, but there are also a lot of 3D shows and content out there. Look at our YouTube channel. There's the Made with MonoGame playlist. There's some very impressive things, including a nice little space sim, which was done for an education institute and showing different rides and different space shows and launching spaceships and things like that. Really fun. And the list is ever growing. And as you go through each case, we talk about the API. It remains rock solid, provides a lot of basic foundational things. But we want to stress not everything. It gives you everything you need to run on a platform. It's not going to give you absolutely everything. All the different model formats are going to be able to load. For that is where we turn to community, whether you're using MonoGame.extended to give it extra sprites, or working with tiled or other different tile solutions, whether you're working with different kind of additional model import formats and things like that. So there's some projects which will allow you to import GLB or GLTF models and things like that and handle animations. Or there's animation frameworks. MonoGame and its Chorus API is giving you everything you need to actually get your project running. Where you take it from there is up to you, and there are communities there to help, and also the team where it can. We generally don't extend the API beyond the realms what it is for the moment, mainly because we want to ensure that every single project you build is just going to work for the life of MonoGame. And obviously, one of its big selling points with MonoGame is that it is cross-platform. So this list is ever growing. In fact, this list is still even out of date. Sorry, Chris. So obviously, Windows, Mac, and Linux on all desktop formats. We support iOS and Android, but also we're extending and update those now with the new Vulkan platforms and DirectX. And also, we support, I can actually say now, all modern consoles. So that's all editions of the Xbox, all editions of PlayStation, and even now all editions of the Nintendo Switch. It does also work on Steam Deck and the ROG Ally and the Ally X. There have been some noted issues with the Steam Deck, but mainly it's a case of down to how you deploy it. And if you talk to the community and have issues, they can help answer those questions and get them sorted out. MonoGame is based upon C#, so we are fully C#, although there are projects that have been written in F#, but any kind of .NET-based language, MonoGame supports. So long as your project can take in a .NET 8 library written in C#, then it'll work and it'll be good. And if you want, you can go and answer the questions. names, questions, things like that. But anyway, now we're 22. How are we doing for questions? The community has been very quiet for questions, but I shall pause for a minute and take a small drink and see if anyone has any questions so far that people have not yet answered. Okay, yes, thank you, Chris. And Visual Basic. We must remember our Visual Basic overlords. It's funny because I started. I know I started my life writing assembly. Unfortunately, that's how old I am. Assembly, machine coding, and programming CNC machines. It's fun. And the Commodore VIC-20 writing BASIC. But yeah, Visual Basic is still a proud language. It is pretty much on par still with C# for its capabilities, and it's still maintained by Microsoft. And yes, you can write Visual Basic if you wish. There are still people who are out there like that. Thank you. I'll see you out there. Oh, wait. Put the wrong one. And yes, Square Windows Phone. RP still gone too soon. It was great. It went through at least 2 iterations between the original 7.5 release with XNA 3.1 up to the XNA 4 refresh and targeting Windows Phone 8. It was fantastic having a mobile platform on C# and just pushing things out, even with just within the Microsoft realm. Obviously, that's before MonoGame took over the world and starting publishing Android and iOS games as well. Be interested to see what the platforms go in there. I think Mutzi is trying to pull my leg now. Is it possible to do 3D in MonoGame? As there is the 3D session. Okay, I'm going to see look. There's someone doing a 3D third person engine written in XNA. No, MonoGame. Okay. Thank you. Yes, in fact, what we'll do is now, okay, so as we're going off into the actual tutorial section of this now, we're going to do what I like to go back to basics. Actually, we're going to create a brand new GitHub repository, and we're going to get that set up, get it locally, and let's see if we can try and figure out how to do a pull request. Actually, Shy Guy, if you go and look on the last stream I did regarding the documentation for the 3.8.4, the MonoGame upgrade guide, which was this. I think this was on Sunday. If you go back and look at it, where are we? The migration. So we did a whole stream on actually upgrading and migrating to the 3.x, and in there we also show you about how to create a pull request for documentation. So that's the best place to go and look. Can I hide this from there? Yes. Okay, so right, back to the show. So over here I am. I'm gonna do this on the MonoGame site. You can't do this, unfortunately. Only I can, and my fellow MonoGame Foundation team. But we're gonna go and create a brand. Okay, let's zoom this in now, because I don't need to wear my glasses, and you need to be able to read it. So we're going to create a nice new, not a new issue, but create a new repository. I'm not creating it as me. I need to create this as MonoGame because we're all here. So, and my caps lock is still on. Yes, of course it's available. Let's spell that right. Now, this string on GitHub keeps changing a lot. And today they've changed it even more now because we can have templates, which we don't have any for MonoGame. You can add a README, which I always recommend doing. Now, if you created this project now, you get an extremely blank repository, which you then need to initialize and do things. If you want to save yourself time and effort, at least add a README. I'm also going to add what's called a git ignore, What this does is that this makes sure that you only put files into your source control that you actually need, not things like build files or component DLLs and stuff like that would be built in the project. You just need your source. There are a lot of templates in here. Venture Game Studio. I've not seen that one. But we want a Visual Studio template, because this includes all the things that you miss out from a Visual Studio or a Visual Studio Code project. And by default, and we can have a look at this to see as well, if there are files we put into our project that they're only temporary that we don't want to use, we can also ignore those so that they don't get saved. They're built each time. And also, right, as it's MonoGame, and this thing scares me. Jumpstart your project Copilot. I've not played with that, but that seems scary. Create a repository with AI. But anyway, so there's our project, nicely built up. And I'm going to do what we call cloning. So this is where I'm going to create a copy of the project on my local machine based upon this repository. And then the two are inextricably linked, so that as I save them here, I can push it back up here and it goes onto there, and vice versa. If I make there is also a web editor which we want to use. Indeed, now I use a tool called Tortoise Git, but you can also use GitHub Desktop. You can actually download a zip file, or you can even have an option here to open with Visual Studio. But me being stuck in my ways as I am, I use this tool called Tortoise Git, which is a nice little semi-GUI tool built into Windows. So it means all my operations are use my File Explorer, which is what I'm used to use. So there's the source where it's coming from. There's the folder where it's going to go to. And I'm going to simplify that a bit. And I shall tell you why in a second. So I've now got a folder which is the exact same now of what's online. Anything I do here and save, and then I push up to the server, is saved automatically. And vice versa, if I make changes on there, I can pull them down here. Main recommendation here there is only do one or the other. If you edit both at the same time, you're going to get what's called a merge conflict, which means the source control doesn't know which version you need to save, then you'll need to resolve it. So go and find a stream, look at how to do that. Anyway, so there's our project, and as we're starting here, so I've got everything in source control. I'm going to open up my command prompt, and then I'm going to create a project. Now, if I go over to the tutorial, where are we? I'm going to do our getting started. In chapter 2 here, we're talking about how we're getting started. This how we're going to create it. So we've created an area where we're going to create our project, and we made it safely. It can be fine, but we need to get this up for MonoGame as well. So as part of this, the first thing foremost thing is installing the latest version of .NET. Now, things are changing slightly. So if you're using 3.8.4 and below, you're using .NET 8. Now, .NET is ever evolving and changing. Now, while MonoGame is still at .NET 8, your client projects, the projects you build, don't have to be. They just need to be able to consume a .NET 8 library. So you can either install .NET 8 here, but what you find is that if you go to this download site now, it's going to be recommending .NET 9 as the version to use. This is perfectly fine to use. You're not going to break anything. You're not going to change anything. And it's simply a case of clicking the button, downloading, installing it. The only area where that comes into question is if you're using a Mac. You need to ensure that you install the version that is specific to your version of Mac. So if I look at the old .NET downloads here, and you see the release, you can see all the different versions for the different platforms. So you've got different Windows versions, which are automatically detected on the machine you're working with. So the button on the screen is always safe. Mac, however, has both the Silicon or ARM build and also got the x64 for the Intel build. You must install the version for the architecture on your Mac. A Mac user should know what I'm talking about. What if you do not install both? I mean, I did that. It breaks your machine, and then you spend time winding everything back and fixing it. You don't want to go there. Just install the version that's there. Ooh. Okay, now Shy Guy's throwing out a good question. Long-term support for .NET generally means that it's supported for about 5 to 10 years. However, every 2 years they're going to release a new version. That's at least what the .NET Foundation is doing. At least that's where it is today. So it's ever changing. Look at what's on there, see what's up to date, see what's relevant to you. MonoGame itself will stay likely at .NET 8 for a good amount of time. The reason for that is simple. Upgrading the framework and all the dependencies is a mammoth task. And as was shown recently we updated one dependency, which is the async model importer. That's broken certain models. Not because of anything they've done badly, but because they've changed how the model is imported. And now it's not how MonoGame expects it. Generally, in some models, not all, the model is rotating 90 degrees. Now, the easy fix to this is that in the content pipeline, rotate it back so that it's always the same new code. You don't have to change anything. So the content pipeline can handle that for you. But that was an unintended consequence of upgrading that. Same with .NET 8. Now, unless there's a really overriding reason for us to change up, because there's a new language feature or some other element that means we need to upgrade because some security concern or policy change, we're not likely to change because it doesn't give you any benefits. You can have your client project running and it will build in that new latest version, and the library itself will inherit all the different performance attributes there, but we're keeping it fixed. Also because we need to support all the different platforms and all the different consoles. So there's nothing detrimental about staying at .NET 8. If and when there's a time where we'll upgrade it, but there's no need or reason to, and potentially incurring breaking changes that just affect everybody. So your client project, you want to install your .NET 9. Linux, you only have, although we have lots of different versions, Linux people know what Linux does. I'm not a Linux person. So and you can see there's the instructions for Windows, Linux, Mac. Now, one thing we stipulate with this tutorial is that anywhere there's a difference in platform or a difference in architecture, you will see these tab views, so you can select whichever platform or operation that you're working with, and it gives you instructions based on that platform. Oh, here I'm on Windows. I'm installed .NET Windows. We're going to overrun. Now, once you've installed .NET, this gives you the basics of .NET itself. But if you also want to work to build and deploy on iOS, on Android, and this even if you're on a Mac, you still need to do these things. The only thing you can't do on a Mac is build for Windows, unless you use Wine. But there's ways around that. Please speak to the Mac community about how to do that. It's not. But anyway, we need to install what are called different workloads. And what this does, it adds different runtimes, it adds different SDKs, and also different compilation techniques for all the things that are needed to be able to then just build your project for that platform. If you're using something like Visual Studio, the different workloads there is an option in there, and you can see through the documentation about what you need to do. If you want to refer to that, then in the Getting Started here, you'll see the setting up for Windows and setting up the Visual Studio for Rider and also for Visual Studio Code. We'll focus on what's in the tutorial today, which is predominantly VS Code. Once that's done, we then need to install the project templates. Now I'm going to do this. I'm not going to run these only because even though I have run them this week, there could have been fixes out, and then they can take a long time to run. So on the stream, when we're short on time, we're not going to do that. So here, I'm going to make sure I'm installing the latest templates. This simply means that at the command line, where we're working today, we're building the project out, it's using the latest. If you're using something like Visual Studio, I highly recommend you use the Visual Studio 2022 extension, which has all these templates also built in. That will remind me of something, which I'm going to try and remember later. But anyway, so that gives us our templates. Now, anytime I create it, is now building it on the latest 3.8.4.1 templates. These have also been updated to .NET 9 by default, primarily because of the mobile templates. But we want to ensure that it's the same for all of them. If you have a project or you want to downgrade it to .NET 8, perfectly fine. We'll not change anything or break anything. You're using a specific version of MonoGame, and your client project works with what it needs to do. Okay, from there then, we're also recommending install Visual Studio Code for this tutorial. It's what I use. If I go to here and just do code, Visual Studio is going to load from here. Yes, I trust this. No, I don't want to trust that. If you're creating a project in a new area, Visual Studio Code will protect you and itself to ensure that the code you're looking at is what you trust. Whether you're writing it where it's coming from somewhere else, it tries to protect you. If I want to, I can go and create a new project and things like that, but I'm not going to do that now. We're following the guide. As you can see, I've got Visual Studio installed. This will also ask you then to install some extensions. Now, Visual Studio Code has a load of extensions, and I mentioned a few in the last stream that help with authoring and guides and documentation and things like that. Go wild, install what you like. Just make sure you look at it, make sure there's enough reviews in each of the extensions that it matches what you'll need and what you're going to do. The C# dev extension is sort of the bare minimum. That gives you both a C# compiler, it gives you formatting for code, so it can easily organize code on the screen, and also do all the little funky things, including some build commands and things like that. As you can see here, the tutorial goes through and shows you what it looks like, how it is. You install it. There's also a recommendation to install the MonoGame for VS Code extension. Now, bear in mind, there are two of these, and I use the other one. So if I do things differently, that's why. All this really does is, all this extension really does is this launches the MGBC editor content tool for you from VS Studio Code. Otherwise, you're going to have to start typing the command to open it every single time. There is also an optional step for mobile developers as well, is that there's a .NET MAUI. However, if you install this, you will also need to install, I'm going to go here, the workload for MAUI. Yes, I agree. Quanticoba, JetBrains is very good. It's just not for me. It is very much a personal choice. We use Visual Studio Code, we use Rider. There is no wrong answer. It's just use what you feel most comfortable with. I'm never going to say to anyone, you must use this. I mean, I still use full Visual Studio occasionally for certain tasks because VS Code doesn't do it. Although it did surprise me this week and do something else. If you're on Mac or Linux, you will also need, so that we can actually compile shaders, the Wine emulation software. So that it puts a Windows environment onto your Mac so we can build shaders. Not really for Windows, but for Mac or Linux. There's a setup script to get you through and started and get you going. Now, there's a caveat to this, which is not in there, which we're not going to cover right now because it's not there yet. As what people know is that we are updating to Vulkan and DX12. Those have their own SDKs that you need to have on your machine to run. If you're also installing Vulkan, you also need a tool called Premake. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail for that now, apart from just to mention it. If you follow through the guide when we're setting up the docs and setting up the environment, we cover through some of that, how you can get the environment set up so you can build the MonoGame framework locally yourself, and there's a few steps there. If you want details of that, and look back at the previous stream. Well, we are here. Our environment set up, so we've got our VS Code installed, we've got our C# set up with the .NET SDK, we've got all the extensions installed, no workload installed, we're all ready. If you've not installed the templates because you've skipped over that step there, it's reminding you here. But effectively what we're going to do is we're going to do a .NET new command for a template. And in here we can see when I install the template, it listed them out. Now, if I clear this out and I don't know what they are, I can go .NET new list and whoops, .NET new list. I can't type. And then this is going to list all the different .NET templates you've got on your machine, including all the MonoGame ones. And also this was the critical thing of what the type it is. So I believe this one is going to ask me to set up a desktop GL. It's something from the VS Code. I'm doing it from the command line. I'm breaking the norm. So I'm creating a .NET new just here, and then I'm going to give it the O command, which basically says this is the program name. Now, one little caveat here is that in a .NET project, now this is nothing to do with MonoGame. This has to do with the fact that .NET projects have a specific naming for how you name projects. Now you can't start with numbers, and you also can't have a hyphen in the middle of beginning, middle, or end of your name, else you actually create problems in creating the project. So your name has to be a short combined name using alpha characters only. Uppercase, lowercase, fine. Underscores, if you wish. So let's say we're going to create the Dungeon Slime project. There we go. Now, if it goes, now once you've created a project, the one thing I like to do every single time is to build it. No, no, I need to go into the folder first. Then type, and build it. This ensures that the project created works, all the templates and everything else are fine. Press on, and if you want, you can even go as far as go to .NET Run. Or even type .NET Run. And then we shall get our good old familiar cauliflower blue. And now if I look in the folder, I can see there's my Dungeon Slime folder, and I can right click on it, and then I can open it with VS Code. And there's my VS Code. Go away, AI, we don't need you today. I've got release notes. And there you can see everything that's in the project. We've got the CS project, which is the main definition for the project itself. You can see we're targeting .NET 9 through the template. And we've got lots of other little funky things in here. And because it's using a Git project now, where's my... Oh, there we go. Let's synchronize you. What are you doing? I thought I told it to create a Git. Ignore it. It hasn't created one. How dare it? But anyway, there's my project. It's all fresh. And the first thing we want to do when we're doing code is that whenever I'm doing change to the project, never change it. As much as attractive it might be easy for quick code. I actually want to go and create a feature branch, which basically is like take my code and put it over here. And then when I'm happy, I'm going to merge it and put it back into the same project. So I'm going to go and create a little branch. And then all the files that have changed that I want to keep, and then going to add them, or what we class as stage them. So it basically says prepare these files for going to the server. And if I'm happy with these, now go through and check to make sure what's changing there. I give it a nice commit message. And then I'm going to do this commit action, which effectively says, take my files, save them. Now, granted, at the moment, they're still on my local machine. So all the files have changed. They're still on my local machine, but they are committed. So if I change them locally now, if I go here, and I try changing, let's see, something I can change. I'm going to say, and save. Cool, IntelliSense, go away. And I now go back to my source control tab here. Can I make this? There we go. And I go back to this. You can see that I've actually changed this one file. And by checking on this, it also then shows me a before and after of what I've changed. And then I can decide to either keep it or no, I didn't want that. I can just discard it and I don't like it. Once you're ready, once you've done your changes, you can then publish. And that's actually going to take everything you've got and pushes it up to the server. And now I've got effectively two sets of code. I've got the base code I've got, which is my current state of the project, and I've got my new changes. Once I'm happy with the new changes, we then go and create what's called a pull request. And that's going to take all the code I've got in this new separate area, and it's going to merge it into my main code base. So there's all the changes. Description, if I'm happy, then I'm going to create it. And then if I go over here, got a nice little commit, I'm going to go back up to my source control here, and then here you have basically a review. So in a small project, you don't necessarily need to go through this complete workflow, but the same is true as also if you're contributing code to MonoGame or other projects where you're taking the code, you're making changes in a separate area, then you're making a pull request to say, I want to take these changes and merge them back into the base code. We can then see here, review it. I can see what files have changed, what changed in those files. Here, obviously, everything's new because I've just added it all as manifest. Everything that's there. And then if I'm happy with it, I can review and say I can approve, or I can say make changes. Oh, I can't approve it. Why can't I approve it? I can't approve it because there's no approvals on this. You can set up Git in lots of different ways, whether you can Git Lab or whatever else you're using. And then once I'm happy, I'm going to merge it. Now, a careful thing here is that I've merged it, but depending on how you set these things up, that branch still exists, so I don't need it anymore. I can delete it. But this now has a disconnect, effectively, between what's on the source control of the server and what I've got locally. Because on the server, this is what my main branch looks like. But over here, if I switch back, I've got nothing. There's no files, no nothing in there. And you think, oh no, I've lost everything. It's not. It's just that your local copy now is out of sync with what's on the server. So by going back to the main branch where everything is, and then I do a synchronization or a pull, it's going to pull down. It's going to say, this is all the changes that's been made to your code. And if I look at my code, there's all my changes in. There's a lot of things that go into this. There's not going into too much detail as we are over time. This first thing, but there we have. We've started fresh. We have our project. It's set up. We're ready to get going. And you'll notice as well, because like our project, VS Code also will set up. Where are we? There we are. Oh, I've got a pull request. I'm going to close all these windows now. VS Code also creates you a solution file for it. Now you may note, the astute note, and Chris will note here now, is that I technically set this up wrong because of the way that the tutorial sets it up in having Dungeon Slam in one project and the solution in another. But we'll come back and correct that later because I'm simply creating it through as we go. But anyway, that's sort of as far as we want to get to today. We've got our environment set up. We've got MonoGame installed and our new project set up. When we get to next week, we'll actually go through some of the code. We'll start making changes, and we'll start actually building this thing out to what it will be. So, as ever, this has now been the MonoGame University. Obviously, we're streaming both on Twitch and YouTube. We appreciate if anyone actually can go and like and subscribe. This helps the channel obviously to build and grow, and also makes the audiences wider and longer, and does all the things helpful. If you're on Twitch, go and give us a like and a heart. I have the Twitch called. I'm not sure what it's called on Twitch. But if you're in Twitch, go and favorite the channel, and if you're on YouTube, go and like and subscribe. That'll help us to ensure the fact that people are engaged. If you're wanting to engage with us after the session, as I said before, there's the Discord chat. Oh, let's get rid of that overlay. That's done. So there's the chat there, and basically this is the chat on the Discord, which is accompanying the stream. So that if you have any questions afterwards or offline, or think of something later, you can go into Discord and you can then ask away, and we shall respond and get back to you. So unless there's any more questions now, yes, and we should also. Let's go back here. There we go. Let's close that. I can hide it here. Yes. So, as ever, if you're liking what you're seeing, what's coming out there, if you want to see what's getting more, let us know. We also like it as well. You can also support and donate to MonoGame because it helps us grow. It helps us get more content out there. And thank you, Mutsi. Yes, we appreciate it. Oh, I love the chat. It's always good. But as ever, this is just the beginning. So this is just a flavor of where we're starting. From next week, we're starting to actually get to real code. We'll still showcase some other tutorials and things that we found along the way before then delving into the actual chapter and going through. And if you're going through the tutorial yourself and you've got questions piled up, be ready with them on stream and we can get answers to you straight away. So thank you to everyone. We've only run 10 minutes over, as it were. And I'd like to thank to everyone for joining, and I shall see you next week.